Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Hello everyone, this is Ask Rob and Rob, the show where you get your questions in, sometimes property related, sometimes not, and we do our very best to answer them. And in fact, we've got a bit of a track record of answering them. We're over 300 episodes in, so we're doing a pretty good job at it. And you're doing a pretty good job of getting your questions in as well, possibly because we made the commitment to answer them, but also probably because it's really easy to get your question in. But let's give you a quick reminder of how you can do that.
Yep, you just got to call 013 808 0035. That's 013 808 0035. Or if you struggle to remember phone numbers like I do, you can just go to propertyhub.net/ask instead. Either way, you'll just leave us a voicemail with your question, and then in due course, we will answer, just like we're about to right now for John.
Hi, Rob and Rob. It's Jan here from Chorley. My question centres around off-plan purchasing. Given the delays that have occurred, the project's around a couple of years behind schedule for delivery, but the purchase price being locked in a couple of years ago now, there could be potentially 4 or 5 years between purchase price being agreed and completion of the development. Is it conceivable, therefore, that if the property price has gone up more than 25% in that period, that I could actually complete on the deal without putting a deposit down because there would be more than 25% equity in the deal? Don't know if that's a pipe dream or something that's realistic, but thought it might be an interesting discussion point.
Hey, John, it's great that the market is on your side and things are moving in the right direction. So it's understandable why you would want to, at completion of your off-plan property, put no money in because the property's gone up in value, right? So you just use the equity that's in the property that you've built up by buying off-plan at a good price. As logical as that sounds to you and I, it's actually something you can't do. So you will get a mortgage for the purchase price. So you will get your 75% loan against the purchase price. You can't say, well, my property's gone up by another 30, 50, 60, however, £1,000, and I want to leverage against that price, please. It can't be done. It's not something you can do with a normal standard buy-to-let product. However, the good news is, if you can demonstrate that uplift in value, after 6 months, you can go and refinance and look to release the equity then. So you might not be able to do it on day one, but you should be able to do it 6 months later if, and I'll repeat, you can demonstrate it has gone up in value. And that's key here. Valuers, on the whole, don't take a view. They want evidence. So if all the properties have been sold 6 months earlier and no one's resold a property during that period and none have been sold for higher prices, then it may be challenging to do it after 6 months. And you may need a slightly longer period of time. Now, if you've got another development next door with very similar properties and a very similar spec, then maybe you can point to that property and say, look, these properties have gone up, so that's my comparable. And hopefully your surveyor will take that into account. But you are relying on a human being to make that decision. And while it should be unemotional, that decision, and it should be based on the numbers, it often isn't, and it is based on a human making a decision based on emotion about how they feel about your particular property at any one point and a particular location at any one point and the market at any one point. And humans have opinions, and because your valuer will be a human, you'll have to see how that goes. Now, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm not trying to say it can't be done. I'm sure you can do it. What I'm warning you is it may take longer than 6 months. Now, it doesn't mean your property hasn't gone up in value if you can't do it after 6 months. You just may need to wait 12 or possibly even 24 months to take full advantage of the equity that you have in that property. So while that may sound mildly frustrating, remember, ultimately, it sounds like you've got yourself a great deal, you've bought at the right time in the right place, and the market has moved in your favour. So it's not all doom and gloom. You've got a lot going for you, John. So best of luck. I hope it's 6 months for you, but just be prepared. It might take a little bit longer, but you will get that equity out eventually.
Okay, let's move on to our second question now. This one is from Sammy.
Hi, Rob and Rob. It's Sammy from Derby. I love your content. Been listening for the past year. I was just wondering, with mortgages, is it better to have a product fee and a lower interest rate, or have no product fee and then have a higher interest rate? Thank you.
Sammy, thank you for the question. Now, is it better to have a lower interest rate or a higher product fee, or the other way around? Well, the answer is there is no generic answer, and it's a bit more complicated than that as well, because often there's a valuation fee in the mix as well, which can be varying amounts, or sometimes lenders offer free valuations on certain products if they're competing for business. So it's not always straightforward to figure out which is going to be best. Now, normally you can add the product fee to the mortgage balance rather than having to actually pay it out. So if you paid a higher product fee in exchange for a lower interest rate, then your monthly payments would be lower because all you're paying is the interest, which is lower, and therefore your monthly profitability in cash terms would be higher. So you could see that as an argument in favour of just doing whatever it takes to minimise the interest rate. However, just because you're adding the product fee to the mortgage and therefore you're not paying it out of your own pocket doesn't mean that it's not a real cost. It is. So the approach that I would take is that for each product you're looking at, take all the various fees, product fee, interest, valuation fee, add them all up, divide them by the amount of months in the mortgage term, and that will give you like a notional monthly amount. By the time you've done that, you'll be able to see which product is cheaper, regardless of how the different fees are broken down. You may then decide not to make that cheapest choice for other reasons, such as wanting to make your monthly cash flow as high as possible, as I just mentioned, but at least that way you'll have a standardized measure that you can use to work out which product actually is the cheapest. Worth saying, as we do say almost every time we talk about mortgages on this podcast, it is worth working with a mortgage broker for this exact reason. A broker should be able to do this for you and will also be able to guide you in other ways because there are so many different factors. It's not just about the interest rate, it's about all the other fees. It's also about service levels. It's also about whether a given lender will make a given product available to you given your situation and what the property is like. There's a lot to take into account. But if you are trying to work it out for yourself, that is how I would approach it. So, hope that helps.
Alrighty, we've done it. 2 more questions in and 2 more questions answered. So we better wrap up, prepare ourselves for the big podcast on Thursday, the property podcast. And of course, we'll be back same time next week for another wonderful edition of Ask Rob and Rob. So we'll see you then. Take care. Have fun. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.